Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
He's here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thought he was coming up the stairs. Our invocation today will be delivered by Stephen Klein from the Lake Country Christian Church in Fort Worth. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges. Thank you very much for coming out today.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we thank you so much for a beautiful day today. God, I pray that whatever decisions are made today, that God, truth would be heard and that you would be lifted up. God, I pray that wisdom would be spoken through every word, through every person in this courtroom today. God, we thank you for the great state of Texas, God, and we thank you for who you are. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Just for the record, this is not an Eagles, it is an Eagles cap, but it is a North Texas Eagles cap and not a Philadelphia Eagles cap. So never let that be confused.
Just checking.
I just thought it would be nice this time to focus on something other than the SEC. And so in being on the Board of Regents, I thought this was a great opportunity with their big win this past weekend to focus on the North Texas Eagles.
And who did they beat?
Did they beat all?
They actually won. They won by almost as big of a margin as some other schools. Mr. Manius, would you like to move us forward?
Please.
Judge, I thought the cap was up there because I understand you won the golf tournament yesterday.
I stayed out of the water.
That's a good start.
For some, they know that that is a real good start.
Your Honor, members of the court, we have one announcement as it relates to the agenda this morning. Under briefing, which is item 11A, this is the update on the Chisholm Trail Parkway. We're going to move that up in the agenda, and we will take that at the beginning of the administrator's section.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of September the 16th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have the recognition of our 2014 Tarrant County Food Bank. Ann, are you?
Yes, sir.
Come on forward.
Judge, many days when you and I walk in here in the morning, you ask me what kind of day it is, and we always talk about the fact that it's a great day, and you always tell me it's a great day to serve.
You bet.
This is a great day. Today, we're going to present a check to the Tarrant Area Food Bank from the county employees who held a food and funds drive this summer and raised $22,500
That's great.
for the food bank. And many departments and many individuals contributed. It was, there weren't any giant checks written. There were a whole lot of bags of popcorn and breakfast tacos and
Trivets?
trivets. Yes, trivets sold, and it was a widespread participation throughout the county. And today we have Bo Soderberg, who's the director of the food bank, here to accept a check, and he's accepting it from Susan Greer in the district attorney's office, Tracy Johnson from the district clerk's office, Lisa Willis from the county clerk's office, and they're just representatives of hundreds of people that participated. Also, handing over the check is Deputy Mike Higgins, who works in our courts, and Mike personally made probably around 1,000 chocolate chip and oatmeal cookies that he sold. And he did a wonderful job and made a huge contribution to the food drive. So would you all come forward so we can present the check and take a picture?
Let me stand behind you.
Okay.
I tell you what, let's do this, okay? Hey, give me just a second. Okay. Yeah, I want to do that. Wait, let me get out of the picture, okay?
Let's do it. That's a good day. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. As you know, this is, or you may not know, this will enable us to distribute slightly more than 110,000 meals to families in need. I say this every time I'm here, and I really, really mean it. I am so proud to live in this community. You care, and you support us, and you support all those in need. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Does Andy get to buy us lunch again? Wasn't this one of those competition deals?
No.
We don't get a lunch?
Well, we ought to get a lunch out of this some way. I'm sure that there's somebody, I'm sure that somebody. Did you raise any money?
He buys then.
Then since you won, you ought to buy.
Works for us.
I, too, want to thank everybody. Again, as Ann mentioned, just whenever the county is called upon, whenever the employees are challenged and called upon, you always come through, and we appreciate that very much, and we appreciate every effort from every employee as we go through these things. You really recognize the need, and then you come forward to help fill that need. So, again, very, very proud to represent Tarrant County. At this time, we will call forward, I guess, Ken Barr as the chair of NTTA to give us our briefing on the Chisholm Trail.
Your Honor, before
Excuse me.
Chairman Barr, could we do a receive and file on that?
Sure.
Move approval to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the presentation to the food bank.
And I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
And we're going to approve the consent agenda too. So if there's no discussion, please vote. Both motions pass unanimously. Now, go ahead, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Judge, members of the court. Pleased to be here this morning to make a very brief presentation to you about NTTA, the Chisholm Trail Parkway, and the events related to opening the Parkway. You'll recall we opened it to traffic back in mid-May. I'm pleased to tell you that there are thousands of people driving on the Parkway every day. Our traffic counts are exceeding our budgeted counts, so that's a very good indicator. Lots of talk about development in southwest Tarrant County along the Parkway and along that corridor. So I think this is going to be very strong and very good for economic development in the county and all the way down into Johnson County. People are truly excited about the road. This morning, would like for Adelaide Levins, who chaired the opening events for NTTA, that got thousands of people involved. Adelaide's going to make a very brief presentation, and then we've asked Elizabeth Mao, our Assistant Executive Director, who oversees our infrastructure and project delivery, to give you a brief report on what you can expect in the next few
Come on
weeks.
down, Adelaide. He'll keep talking until you get up here.
So, Adelaide, please come ahead. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge and Commissioners. To set the scene, Saturday, May 10th, 2014, 68 degrees at 4 a.m., the moment when the first of 380 volunteers begin to assemble at the Edwards Ranch along 22 miles of the Chisholm Trail Parkway. The bustle begins as 750 half-marathoners board Fort Worth ISD buses to the start in Johnson County. School and community groups begin pouring 5,000 cups of water in preparation for the runners at the 9 fluid station. Meanwhile, Johnson County and Cleburne dignitaries assembled 22 miles south at the end of the Parkway, ready to welcome cyclists to the point where finally there would be wind beneath their wheels. City chamber officials and elected representatives from Joshua and Burleson made enough peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to feed a convoy of windblown, weary cyclists. Back in the fort, Tarrant County Mounted Patrol guided 1,000 5K runners onto the Parkway and 100 tiny tots for the mini-mile. All were assembled for what was promised as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to run, ride, or walk on the Chisholm Trail Parkway before it opened to traffic the next day. The finish line banners deflated at 3 p.m., the road turned over to NTTA, and toll tag fees have been accumulating ever since. Just 6 months prior, the steering committee of elected officials and agency representatives from Tarrant and Johnson counties, the cities of Fort Worth, Joshua, Burleson, and Cleburne, North Central Texas Council of Governments, TxDOT, and NTTA assembled to lay the groundwork for this special day. Most importantly, they identified 2 organizations to be the beneficiaries of the proceeds of this event, CASA of Tarrant County and CASA of Johnson County. The hard work began with the planning committee consisting of members of chambers of commerce, special interest groups, stakeholders, the 2 CASAs, and even a spot for a recently retired TxDOT district engineer. The results, exceptional underwriting from sponsors, even more exceptional in-kind support from TxDOT and other government agencies, a tightly controlled budget by the staff at the Cowtown, 5,000 participants, and a total of $150,958.54 shared equally between CASA of Tarrant County and CASA of Johnson County. And I do want to introduce, I know 3 members of the Planning Committee are here with us today. Tom Stallings, who never told me no for months on end. Thank you for your help. Meredith Howler from Edwards Ranch, and Natalie Stallmock from CASA of Tarrant County. Thank y'all. It was a privilege to do this. I took a few days off afterwards. And
We really want to thank you, Mayor Barr.
Yes. When Adelaide told me that we might be able to raise $50,000 or $60,000 for CASA, I thought that was impressive, and I can't tell you how impressive it is to know that more than $150,000 was raised. In appreciation of her work and volunteering, NTTA is arranging for a bench to be installed on the Trinity Trails, recognizing this occasion and her work. And you know, those benches have a granite plaque in front of them that's set in concrete that says who gave the bench or what the occasion was. Well, it was a little too heavy to bring that granite plaque here today. But Adelaide, I want to present you with this replica of the bench that you can have in appreciation. The bench will be installed at a location you get to help us determine, and that will be done in the very near future. And thank you very much for a job exceedingly well done.
Thank
I appreciate
you very
it.
much. My pleasure. Thank you.
I don't think you realized this was going to happen, but we cannot even begin to tell you how much we appreciate not just the work that you do here and that you've done for this particular event, but for the work that you've done for so many years for this community. You are truly one of those folks who we talk about who are just committed, have a passion for community service, and we just can't begin to tell you how much we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate that. Thanks so much. Okay, Mayor Barr, or Chairman Barr may not let you have one of these. Most people had to ride 48 miles to get one of these medals, but I held back a few for y'all.
Thank you.
Well, you know, J.D. and I rode together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, Judge, we'd like for Elizabeth Mao to just give you a very brief report.
Before Adelaide sits down, Adelaide, you are truly a treasure in this community. Your service from streams and valleys through a multitude of projects over the years mark you as a tremendous Fort Worth, Tarrant County asset. I was very pleased to serve under your leadership on this planning committee, although you didn't call my name this morning, but that's okay. It's a job exceedingly well done, and this community applauds you and appreciates you for all of your lifetime body of work.
Thank you.
And we know that you're not done.
Thank you.
Judge, I failed to acknowledge, I wanted to point out that Bill Meadows is here this morning. Bill is a former member of the NTTA board and has served this community in this state in several other roles, and certainly has been involved in Streams and Valleys, which is an important part of this community, and we appreciate Bill being here this morning.
Certainly. Welcome, Bill.
Mr. Chair.
I'd like to echo what the chairman said, too. Adelaide did more than I'm sure she thought she was going to do when we called her and said, hey, you want to help us open the Chisholm Trail Parkway? And she said, yeah, she didn't even hesitate.
It's kind of that same phone call when we call Meadows and Barr and ask them to serve on the NTTA. That's not going to take a lot of time. You know,
That's
it's just,
true.
you know, it's a couple of meetings and then
We
it'll
got
be
it all
over.
figured out. We got it all figured out. So we really appreciate what she did and helping us get the project open. I'll be brief, just give you a couple of updates. I'd like to start all my presentations to this court to thank you for welcoming us into your community. Our first project in Tarrant and Johnson County, and I continue to say it to everyone I meet over here, we feel like we're loved neighbors. We get great feedback from your community, and which we good and bad, but feedback we welcome. We're happy to report that traffic is exceeding our expectations. Our toll tag counts are higher than we thought. So all around, we're very happy with the performance of the work. And again, we thank you for welcoming us into your community. Just a couple brief updates. As you know, we're working on finish-out items of the total project. Within the next month, we do anticipate that all the ramps will be completed at 20 and at 30, working with TxDOT on the final closures to get that done. As you can imagine, that work over the interstate highway is very complex, and working with TxDOT, and we do anticipate within the next month those will be finished up, and you'll be able to access the Chisholm through the direct connect ramps at 30 and 20. We will be doing some ongoing work on the tollway, probably till the end of the year, cleanup items. So please be diligent as you everyone be diligent as you take the road. Watch for cones, lane closures. Again, I remind you, safety is our #1 priority. So roadway work to the end of the year, then we should be off the roadway completely, and several months into next year working on the final aesthetics and the landscaping of this project to deliver what we promised you we would deliver, and what Mayor Barr and Meadows and Adelaide and all the people of Tarrant County that worked so hard to get this project, what they envisioned this project years ago. We're eager to hand that over in the months to come. So those are all my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
One question.
Yes, sir.
On the center median, there are some decorative totem pole looking things. What is that?
That is the City of Fort Worth public art.
That's public art. Okay.
They're not finished, as I understand
I
it.
gathered that. That's why I asked.
They're-
Don't become an art critic.
Anyone?
Meadows, I noticed that Meadows is crawling under the chair there right now. Barr's just waving at us. Even Adelaide's not even getting into this one. You're on your own, Elizabeth.
The bases are good looking. I just wondered what the rest of it was going to be.
There is some things to be added to the top of those, various things, and honestly, there's some buckets and some.
That really sounds.
They're
good.
water features. They're at all the water features where the tollway crosses all the water features. So they symbolize the water feature crossings, and they're not complete. And
you ever heard the thing that says if you're digging a hole and you got to quit digging?
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Done. They're not finished. How about that? Any other great questions this morning about the road?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank y'all for. We'd love to have y'all stay if you'd like, but at the same time, we'd understand if you would decide you want to head on out. Mr. Manius, I believe it's your time on the agenda.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, on item number 1, I'm going to ask
Your
Mr.
dad, I said
Mendez to
hello.
address the court on that particular item.
Good morning. We have before you this morning several issues related to upcoming legislative and congressional actions that are going to be considered. I've got 2 legislative policy statements for the court to consider dealing with issues that we think that have been brought to us, one from public health regarding public health initiatives, support for creative public health initiatives, recognizing that many of the policy issues that will be before the legislature will have some public health implications. And be happy to answer any questions on that. The second policy statement deals with support for the efforts at the Naval Air Station Fort Worth Joint Reserve Base. This is crafted in conjunction with the policy statement that is being issued by the committee out there that was put together to represent the interests of all the local communities in the air base. And our statement mirrors their statement almost directly. The next 2 issues are 2 resolutions dealing with federal issues that are going to be before the upcoming session of Congress. These were also brought to our attention by our friends at NACO, and the Conference of Urban Counties has also issued letters on these particular issues. The first one is dealing with reauthorization of the Federal Second Chance Act. This, over the period of time that the Second Chance Act has been in place since 2009, over $300 million has been distributed to the states for reentry services and the like. $95 million of that has gone directly to county governments nationwide, and I believe we benefit from that directly. I don't know what the exact number is on that. The second resolution is in opposition to the expansion of the definition of waters of the United States. Again, NACO has weighed in heavily on this issue, as well as the Conference of Urban Counties from the state of Texas. And
the one thing I would say specifically about this one is if this definition were to be successful, you would not be able to clear your bar ditches without a permit from the Corps.
Right.
If approved, we will share these with our congressional delegation and with our state representatives as well.
I move approval of the list of resolutions.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Bart.
Members of the court, if we can go to item number 2, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the Tarrant County 911 Emergency Assistance District's FY 2014-15 budget. You might recall that was presented to you last week. Staff is requesting approval.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 3, we are going to ask for partial approval to our request. This is a request from Fort Worth Sister Cities, and at the time that we put the communication together, sister cities had requested the use of the administration front lawn and also the courtyard down at the Plaza building for their 2014 Amazing Global Race event. And the court communication describes what that particular event is. Since that time, sister cities has modified their request. They're only requesting the use of the administration front lawn. Staff is recommending approval on this.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the court, on item number 4, we're requesting that the court approve a request from the CDC and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for the use of the Resource Connection as a site for the National Health and Nutrition Examination Surveys Mobile Examination Center, which is conducted by WESTAT. That's a research corporation, and the dates of that are going to be from November 1, 2014 through January 31, 2015.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet. Ms. Tidwell.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have one item for the court's consideration this morning, and that is to receive and file the auditor's report for the fiscal year 2013 related to review of the tax office and ad valorem refunds. There's a lot of comment about smaller dollars. We review the majority of all refunds. We don't look at the refunds under $500, which was primarily the purpose of this audit, was to select a small number of those. We have a number of suggestions. We'll continue to work with the tax office to see how we might continue to improve in these areas. You have the response from the tax assessor attached. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Then could I have a motion to receive and file?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Snyder?
Risk Management Board is recommending the payment of the claim to Christy Miller in the amount of $2,726.02, plus additional funds for a rental vehicle.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Glenn? Nope. Ms. Warren?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Our first item is to request that you receive and file the personnel agenda.
Move to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is approval of the law enforcement certification pay policy. As you might remember, this was discussed previously during the budget process. So effective October 1st, 2014, the law enforcement employees and commanders in the DA's office and Sheriff's Department would be eligible for certification pay. It does exclude elected officials. So employees that have obtained certification that is above what is required by their position would be eligible to receive $50 monthly. The qualifying certification, and they would only get credit for one certification. So if they have multiple certifications, they would still only get the $50 a month. So that's for intermediate, advanced, and masters for jailers, peace officers, or telecommunicators. The employees are responsible for notifying HR of changes in their certification status. And of course, we will verify all of those certifications. Additions, which would include new hires, reinstatements, will become effective semi-annually, so on October the 1st and April the 1st, okay? And removals would be effective immediately. So what that means is if someone is hired in January, then theirs would go into effect in April, should they have that certification, and then they would provide that to us. However, if somebody in January is promoted to a position that they no longer exceed the requirements, then that would be effective immediately upon that promotion to remove that $50. And then, of course, should you all approve it, we will then take it to the Civil Service Commission for their approval. And the cost of this is estimated to be $420,000 in fiscal year 15, which does include fringes. Be glad to answer any questions.
If the employee failed to report a change in their certification status, how would you know about it?
Well, we've been working with the Sheriff's Department very closely. They are able to provide us a list of those employees that have certifications. And, of course, we will also monitor promotions. So if someone is promoted to a position that requires advanced or intermediate, then we would go back and look at that person. So we'll have two ways to catch those.
From a management perspective, do you have any feedback from the Sheriff's Department regarding treating the advanced certification the same as the intermediate? They're basically being treated the same.
Certainly, I can't speak for the sheriff, but based on my conversations with them, they are comfortable with us only giving credit for the one certification. I think if we were to give different dollar amounts for different certifications, it would become administratively much more challenging.
Okay. So the sheriff,
I can't.
the sheriff reflected no
Concerns.
no concern. Okay.
Yes, sir.
At one point in time, we had talked about annually certifying that nothing had changed. Was that just decided that you didn't need to do that?
Well, I think what the plan is that we will begin this $50 based on the list that is provided from the Sheriff's Department. They can obtain a list from TCOL, which is the organization that keeps up with certification. So once they have provided us with this and we have matched it to job descriptions and what have you, we will begin awarding this certification pay in October. Then to go behind that, because we don't really have time before October 1st, we are going to have all employees that are receiving this to sign a document that says it is valid. We will have their supervisory staff sign that document, and then going forward, if somebody obtains a new one, then they would need to come to us and with that form, and of course we'll continue to verify it against the sheriff's list.
But there'll be no annual recertification that they still are eligible for this?
Well, sir, I make sure I understand your question. If you're asking, do the employees have to do something to keep their certification valid? Yes, they do. They have.
Do they have to basically recertify to HR every year that they have done whatever was necessary to keep that certification, and that they didn't lose that? So, for example, if someone was supposed to have so many hours of training, and they didn't get that training and they lost the certification, they're supposed to tell y'all about it. But if they forget, and then we get to the new year and, we don't have them sign anything that says, I'm continued, and at that point when we're initiating the action or when they've got to initiate it, that may be the reminder that, oh, yeah, by the way, I need to tell somebody.
Well, I don't think our intent was to have.
Let me just clarify something. There's a difference between certification and licensing. Certifications are not something that you lose. It's something you obtain. Licenses, a peace officer license is something that you can lose if you don't do your training. You still keep your certification. That is not something that doesn't require any additional education or anything. Certification is you have it as soon as you earn it, and you never lose that.
Yes, but I want to just be sure, because I know I'm certified as a public accountant, but if I don't get my 40 hours, I lose that certification. So you're saying that none of these law enforcements require any annual education to remain certified? Come on up here.
Not for certifications, for licensing.
Well,
my name is Chief Eckert. I'm over training and over the licensing and stuff. If a person loses their license due to the fact they don't complete training, they lose their license altogether. They can't be an employee.
right. I understand. Okay, so I understand. So they're licensed to be, and that's required for whatever position they've got.
Correct.
Now they've gone to another level, and they've gotten another level of either certifications or whatever that's not required. Is there some instances where those certifications would require an annual amount of training or to maintain that certification?
The state license has the training requirements. Once you hit intermediate, that is because of your education, whether it be college or formal law enforcement, and your time in service. Those are things that can't ever go away because you've already received that. The license itself is dependent on how many hours of training you receive in a training cycle. So if you do not do that, the state actually pulls your license. We have to suspend the person and remove them from service.
So are you saying then that this immediate, intermediate, advanced, and master are just a matter of how long you've been licensed?
Not just time in service. If you have a bachelor's degree, it will reduce the amount of time that you have to wait to get your intermediate license by 2 to 4 years. So if you have a bachelor's degree, you can get your intermediate in 4 years if you have still received all the training requirements under the Texas Administration Code and the T-Code requirements. There's a list of courses that you have to complete before you're eligible for that intermediate. If you do not have that education, it can take 15, 20 years to get intermediate without doing all the other steps. There's 3 different steps involved in getting these certificates.
So once you've gotten to be an intermediate, and I'm assuming that you're in order to be a jailer, what license do you have to have?
Just a basic. All you have to do is graduate from the jail academy.
Okay,
And you
so
get a basic right out of the academy.
So you've graduated, you've got your basic license, you're now eligibly a jailer.
Yes, sir.
You, for whatever length of time you take, you become an immediate, now you become an intermediate jailer. You training, time, whatever.
Correct.
So you're saying you can never lose the intermediate and be back to just a basic jailer?
It is not possible. That is a certification of your license. So that intermediate, advanced, masters, those are there permanently. You either have a license or you do not. The others are considered certificates of the license.
So could someone be a basic jailer for life and never move to an
We
intermediate?
have them currently right now that have worked for us for over 20 years, including peace officers and jailers that still have a basic because they have not completed all the requirements under the Texas Administration Code. That is
Okay.
correct.
So there's not an ongoing, it's just you get this and now you're an intermediate. You never lose that unless you lose your license altogether.
And you never go up further than the intermediate unless you complete the required.
next set.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's what I needed to hear then. So
Okay.
there would not be a reason for any kind of an annual, because if they've changed and lost it, they've lost their whole license.
Yes, sir, and I am actually the person that communicates with TCO. I sit on one of the commissions down there with TCO. We talk constantly. I have access. I can get on there at any time for any law enforcement officer inside Tarrant County, including the DA, the ME, the constables, and I can verify those licenses at any time.
If they lose their license, are they automatically terminated from Tarrant County as a jailer?
That's a civil service issue. They cannot work inside that environment. Let's just take a jailer, for example. If a person loses their jailer's license and we employ them for 1 hour inside that jail, we can lose certification on the jail. They immediately have to be removed from that facility. We will put them in a phone room while we're doing through disciplinary and dealing with the civil service rules on that. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's what I needed to hear.
Yeah, their certification pay, if they lose their license, they don't have a license. They can't receive certification pay. Right.
But and how do you find out, I mean, is the action something to cause them to lose their license? Is it always an action within, or could it be some action outside that you're not aware of?
There are several ways that you can lose your license. A, you can commit a criminal offense, a Class B or above, or a Class C misdemeanor that's involving family violence. I have to send a report to the state of Texas within 30 days to let them know those have occurred. And then there's an administrative hearing down in the state that decides whether or not they're going to pull their license. The other part is they don't complete their training on training cycles. The training cycle is every 2 years, and it ends on August 31st on odd number years. So we have a training cycle that's ending August 31st of 2015. Right now, I'm over the academy. I've got the academy coordinator that runs a list of everybody, telecommunicator. By the way, telecommunicators just became licensed on January 1st of this year. It used to be just a certificate. So those requirements weren't there. They wouldn't have even met the eligibility requirements for certification pay until they became licensed on January 1st. So what I have is I have a list that runs down. We pull it right out of the state record to see if they have met those training requirements coming up before August 31st. Because what we don't want is August 1st, 500 employees that we're trying to get training in a 31-day time period. Yeah. So we complete this about every quarter, and we're doing it now to make sure that everybody meets those requirements. If we have somebody that's out on FML, military, so forth, I personally have to write a letter and file for a waiver with the state so that their license does not get suspended. If a person does not complete that training, they lose their license, they must reapply for that license through the state. There's a $200 application fee. They have to get the training up to date, and then the state has to give them a certificate to retest on the state licensing again. It's not something that you want to do to try to deal with getting that license back.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Wait a minute, we got to,
Oh, go ahead.
I will defer to the senior.
I think we're fixing to have a motion, because we don't have a motion or a second yet.
Am I to understand, Robin, that the decision of this court on this matter is not the final word? It then has to go to the Civil Service Commission?
Well, yes, sir. All of our HR rules typically are included in our Civil Service Commission. I think that's just a formality.
This one would be the sheriff's civil service and not our regular civil service.
Well, it actually go to both because of the constables that are in the covered under the regular as opposed to the
What
sheriff's.
happens if one of those Civil Service Commissions gets to feeling its oats and decides that this court made an error in adopting this policy? We haven't made an error, but what happens if they decide that they disagree?
I might have to ask legal about that, but to my knowledge, that has never happened.
That doesn't mean it couldn't.
Mr. Wright?
It wouldn't be wise.
It certainly would not be wise, but they've done unwise things in the past.
Yeah.
I think typically our reaction to this has been that they don't have the authority to pass things that cost you money. So a more relevant question would be if they decided to do this without you wanting to do it.
But that's not the situation here.
Yeah, I know, and so I don't think it matters what they do with it.
I guess, except that I would, so what you're saying is I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, but let me try it.
Well,
This is not uncommon
Well,
either.
you're suggesting that the pay structure for the sheriff's department is going to be approved by the civil service.
No, I don't think that's-
Although this is only a very, very small part of it, this still is the part of the pay structure for the to be approved by the Civil Service Commission. I don't think they have the authority to enact a pay structure for the sheriff's department in any form or fashion, whether it's.
I thought it would be more along the lines if, for whatever reason, they lost the certification or weren't eligible for certification, and they felt like they had some reason to contest that decision, they could take it to the Civil Service Commission.
No, this is taking this policy to the Civil Service Commission for its approval of what we've already said we wanted to do, which I think is completely irrelevant.
Actually, Judge, that brings up an additional point that I think supports what the commissioner said. Because any diminution in pay, any reduction in pay, I believe, I haven't read the rules in years, and I have people who read them now, but any reduction in pay, I think, is grievable, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know what the rules say about this because this has never been in the rules. But if we reduce someone's pay and it's a grievable offense, then we reduced it because they failed to be certified. Licensed, they lost their license. There may be something else in the rules that takes care of that. But
It would seem to me like that as long as we were not the entity making the determination as to whether they've lost their license or not.
I don't see how losing a license that we didn't grant in the first place could be a grievable offense.
That's what I was just fixing to say.
And I don't know how the rules handle that, and I think we should think about that instead of thinking how we didn't do it. Therefore, we don't have a problem when the rules may say if you lose pay, you have.
Well, and I mean, we're going. I don't think there's any question about whether we're going forward. we're going to do the what-ifs, and I can guarantee you under the what-ifs, we'll never get finished with this meeting today.
One of the questions that came up, just to let the board know, that under 12.02 of the Sheriff's Civil Service Rules, under discipline, there's actually a section that says that if you fail to meet training in your licensing, that you can be disciplined. So there's already a section in civil service under the Sheriff's Civil Service that says if you do not meet these requirements, that you fall underneath disciplinary action. I don't know if that helps you out on that.
But let me ask, under that scenario, what it's saying is you meet the disciplinary action if you don't make the requirements. If you don't make the requirements, you're no longer licensed by the state. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it doesn't, you may be disciplined, but the bottom line is you're no longer licensed, and because the state said you weren't licensed, we didn't say you weren't licensed.
The issue also is the fact that under the job description, it's a requirement of the job description. If the person loses their license, they no longer fit into the job description. Right. You can't allow the employee to stay in that position if they don't meet the job requirements any longer.
And the job requirement, or the certification, the license, whatever, is something is determined by the state, not by us.
The position is determined by us under the Job Evaluation Committee and under the Hay Studies, where we determine what are required of the job positions. The state is the one that says for you to be a peace officer to act under the authority of the color of the law, you have to have this license. Our job descriptions match mainly what the state requires of us. So if they fail to meet the state requirement, they're not meeting the job description, which means they fall under discipline. They can no longer be in the position. If they don't have the license, I would say that they can't have the certification pay because you don't even have a license to be able to receive the certification pay.
And hopefully we never have to test that. Commissioner Johnson.
I move approval of the policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
I didn't get an answer to my question, but that's okay. And it was a much simpler question than all this grievance stuff. Why should it have to go to the Civil Service Commission when they don't have the authority to tell us no?
I think Mr.
And hopefully Ray Rock will explain that, if he can. Motion passes unanimously.
I said I don't see why you have
Put it in
to.
a letter. Put your answer in a letter. I'd like to see it in writing.
All right.
Item 3.
Thank you. Our last item is approval of flu vaccinations for Tarrant County employees. As you know, each year we do offer free flu vaccinations to our full-time employees. And so this is for your approval. Just so you know, the cost of the flu vaccinations has gone up from $10.55 per dose to $14.41 per dose. And once should you all approve this, once public health notifies us that we're ready, or they're ready, we'll set the time and the date for this.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Jack, are you next?
If you're on Social Security, you can get Medicare will pay for this, and you don't have to charge it to the county.
Just a second. So if you're on Social Security, you can get that for free?
And there are
Some of
employees
you
who are on Social Security.
who are?
Yeah. Doesn't matter who they are, there are.
Go right ahead.
Good morning.
I done the whole, those hogs did pretty good, didn't they?
Yes, sir. I have an observation if you care to.
I don't really care.
No.
Item number 1, moving right along.
You just don't get any credit.
It's a good one.
Item number 1.
Is a bid award recognition for RFP 2014-086 for youth advocacy services. Recognitions to award to the 2 primary vendors of Shawnee Corcoran McKay in the amount of $821,000. If this is approval, seeking contract approval from the court.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is a bid award recommendation for bid 2014-165. This is our annual contract for the purchase of police package vehicles. Our recommendation will be toward a per enterprise basis, awarding to the 11 primary vendors of Shawnee Corcoran McKay.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our last item is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2014-174. This is our annual contract for water treatment services for our various Tarrant County buildings. Recommendation would be toward a per enterprise basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors of Shawnee Corcoran McKay.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
You're sure? Thank you, Jack.
I move approval of item 8M, 1A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius, or briefing item.
And we do not have any additional briefing items for the court this morning.
Then we will recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from our closed session, we will now address the following matters.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is under the District Attorney's item. It's the only item under there. We're requesting authorization for approval of the stipulation settlement agreement consent order that is here in front of me and that the clerks have. And we're requesting authorization that the payment of $2,000 to the Railroad Commission be paid from the fund that is listed on this communique without it first appearing on the claims register for approval by this court. Authorize the county auditor to issue the check.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Please show that Commissioner Brooks was not here.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
We're adjourned.